The conquered, staircase to elevator, high-speed elevator to human plane, from carving on the wall to writing to computers to high-speed to now chatbot thinking and writing for you. Desire to compress life. What I would have earned a decade later is what I want to earn as of yesterday. It is interesting to see what it is leading as far as the human evolution is concerned. Whether the speed and efforts to compress is leading to a newer problem. And with this context, the topic for the first session is business fraud and the extent of accountability for auditors. Considering that the profile of the esteemed panelist has been circulated, so we will only start straight to the questions. And before we come to the questions, may I request Advocate Chidananda sir to start with his opening 2-3 minutes of remark, and then we move on. Sir.
Good morning, everybody, and I thank KSCAA for giving me an excellent opportunity to be sharing my views with such a large gathering and an audience. The issue here, as we are discussing, is the issue of fraud. Now, the question that arises is, can fraud as an expression be defined, or is it defined anywhere? The courts have also, now I will get into the decision of the Supreme Court, where Supreme Court, in the case of Ramesh Kumar, said fraud as an expression cannot be defined. But obviously, there are different hues of fraud, and the courts have said what are the concomitants of fraud. The major concomitant of fraud is the aspect of deceit, or to say a certain thing which is false to gain advantage out of it, or to put in another person into a disadvantage. This is the thumb rule of the expression fraud. So with that, we will now dwell on various laws which deals with fraud. And I am here to probably give a brief introduction on the Prevention of Money Laundering Act, which is the most draconian law as of now, which deals with a situation where somebody commits a crime. Fraud is also a species of a crime. When a crime is committed, and there are various crimes which are under the schedule to the Prevention of Money Laundering Act. The moment a crime is committed and it is taken cognizance of, Prevention of Money Laundering Act will trigger in that situation. What are the crimes? There are a list of close to around 70 or 80 sections of the IPC, which is considered as a scheduled offense under the Prevention of Money Laundering Act, and there are various other acts as well, which is part of the scheduled offense under the Prevention of Money Laundering Act. What happens? Because of paucity of time, I'll probably be rushing a bit. The moment a scheduled offense or a charge sheet or an FIR is filed, after that a charge sheet is filed, the police or any investigating authority will take cognizance of that offense. The moment it is done, Enforcement Directorate will also get the powers to investigate independently with respect to if there is any proceeds or a property which is generated out of that criminal activity. And the most important thing which professionals have to keep in mind is Section 3 of the PMLA, which is very, very vast. Any assistance rendered by any person in committing that crime will also be considered as a person violating Section 3 of the Prevention of Money Laundering Act, and all the consequences will follow. If there is an asset which is derived out of that, that will be attached, and independently prosecution is also launched under Section 4 of the Prevention of Money Laundering Act. There is a very detailed decision passed by the Supreme Court in the case of Viday Madanlal Chaudhary, which can be read as a Bible now on the effect of Prevention of Money Laundering Act, which is considered a very, very serious law and a very draconian law as well. This is as far as my small introduction on the element of fraud is concerned. Thank you.
Thank you, Chandan sir, and more on the PMLA and the other things as we go down. Mohan sir, with your opening remarks for the audience, please.
Thank you, sir.
Sir is taking.
Good morning, everybody. My session chairman, my colleague members, and ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed a pleasure. I want to give a different perspective to you. As a chartered accountant and as an investigator, there are three facets that come to my mind. Are we expected to fight fraud, first of all? My open question to you. Are we expected to fight fraud? I found the answer to this steeply imbibed in romanticism. You know, we all make vows before marriage and we promise so many things. We have become slave to the promises. Same happened in the CA profession. As a chartered accountant and as an officer investigating now, the expectation level has become so high, both written and unwritten, both stipulated by law and not stipulated by law, both unwillingly, unwittingly taken upon our own head and not taken. But once we have become a slave, we are bound to answer. I have some empirical data. ACFE, I am a CFE also. ACFE conducted worldwide survey. Only 16% of the frauds were unearthed by internal auditors. And you will be surprised, only 9% of the frauds were. Am I audible clearly? Is it audible, sir? Yeah. 9% of the frauds were unearthed by statutory auditors. Sandeep sir, 9%. So, is it our job to unearth the fraud? Can anybody answer me, sir? I don't think so. I don't think so. Our job is to give a true and fair opinion on the financial statements. Unless it is a forensic audit. Okay, my request to all of you is three facets I will be covering in the end. How to safeguard the professional colleagues. I will give you a classic example of two cases which I personally investigated. In one case, we indicted the auditors and they are convicted also. In the second case, auditor's role is not found and we supported them to the hilt. Sachem Computers, auditors are indicted. I had the dubious privilege of investigating it. In Kingfisher case, auditors are not indicted. Both are major cases. Both multiple banks are involved. Why so? Why so? The documentation and the role play of the auditor clearly safeguarded the auditors. So, without going into further this thing, my two bit of opinion to fraud is certainly it is advisable to restrict yourself to the mandate given to you rather going to project yourself as a fraud fighter. Don't do that mistake because the impediments and the attendant problems also will come along with that. I hope I am clear, sir. Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. And for the benefit of the audience, what we have agreed with the panelists and with the organizers is that they will not be diplomatic in their answers. We will get the best out of the speakers because while this is a closed room conference, whatever are matters for the benefit of the audience here, we shall get the best from their knowledge and not just have a guarded answer. Mohan sir, for your 2 minutes of opening remark.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. And real pleasure to be here and thank the KSCAA for this. The topic was accountability of auditors for fraud, and the general impression, as Sharad Kumar sir also says, is that we are not responsible for fraud. And the word responsible is a very, loaded word. What is the responsibility? It's a very loaded word. I would personally think that the environment in which we are doing the audit today has changed so much that we can no longer say, that Kingston Cotton Mills introducing, they said, bloodhound, watchdog. In last year's KSCAA conference, we introduced a term called as third umpire. Many people are using the word called as gatekeeper now. So these, these nomenclatures for auditors keep changing. But what has happened, Sandeep sir, is that the expectations suddenly seem to have changed, and this started from Enron. The Enron was responsible for a lot of what we are doing today. Enron is responsible for what we are doing today. So we thought that Enron was a one-off case. We thought Satyam was a one-off case. But we've had subsequently issues with, you name the country, there is a problem there. You've got, for example, Toshiba in Japan. In UK, you had this company called as Carillon. Germany, you had this fintech company called as Wirecard. Russia, you had a coffee company. Throughout the world, there have been situations wherein auditors have been found wanting in the responsibility, shall I say, of casting their, giving the report or giving whatever they had to say. So because of this, environment changing, expectations seems to have increased. I will just, later on, I'll answer a few specific questions which have come in there. But two things which I would like to definitely highlight here is that if there is gross negligence proved, as Sharad Kumar sir has also said, I don't think you have any escape. If there is gross negligence proved, you have absolutely no escape. It's a very different, sort of equation how you can prove the gross negligence of the auditor. And so the fact is that, again, documentation will probably save you, but because of the fact that the environment has changed, expectations have changed, in case you do notice the fraud, I think you will have to call it out and probably say this. I'll just say one more thing, just conclude. When I was entering the conference hall, a good friend of mine, Anil, partner HK and company, he caught hold of me and said that, what are you saying, accountability of fraud? The moment you are saying that you are doing the auditing as per auditing standards, you are accountable for fraud. Because he says SA 240 is there, SA 200 is there. The Companies Act also says you have to do as per all the auditing standards. So you are definitely accountable, he says. But I would, probably draw a line and say that if gross negligence is proved, you really cannot escape. How do you protect yourself from gross negligence? It depends on the audit file you are developing. That's all. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, thank you. And what we will also do is that I'm sure as we delve into further, there will be questions from the audience. So we've left sufficient time to get the audience questions, and may I request the organizers to see that we have a couple of mics so that we can get the questions as well in the meantime. Thank you. So Chidanand sir, you touched briefly on the topic of fraud. So two questions specifically I have. Is that, can you define fraud? What are the types of the frauds which you are seeing? And whether growth at any cost, whether is it leading to a business fraud? Because I did hear Mr. Narayan Murthy 10 days back saying that growth at any cost is leading to a newer set of challenges. Your thoughts on this aspect?
Thank you. Fraud, as I've said, the Supreme Court said it cannot be defined at all. It depends on the circumstance. It depends on the intent of a person as to what sort of a mindset he is in to commit that sort of a fraud. One aspect which all our chartered accountants friends would probably understand is the Supreme Court has said any willful attempt to defeat or circumvent any tax law in order to illegally reduce one's tax liability is a tax evasion which is termed as a tax fraud. So fraud has got various hues and various, it takes color from the law which has been violated. Basically, there is no hard and fast rule. As I've said, as my learned friend Sharad Kumar sir said that your responsibility is to do audit. But when your responsibility is goes to complicity of doing something and you are conniving with, and somebody is conniving someone to either not do their audit responsibilities because they'll have to somehow save the company or the client or whoever, there is a problem. And the fraud has been defined or divided into 3 or 4 categories basically. The international authorities have found out where all frauds broadly happen. One is the fake documentation. You've seen in various cases like Satyam and other situations where fake documentation is the cause of the fraud. The other is fake companies. You've seen in IFCL and all those situations where 300 and odd companies were formed and money was siphoned off to fake companies. The other is fake asset purchase. This is one broader category where frauds can be perpetrated by the management or by anybody who's in the field of management. The fourth is the untrue statement which knowingly is signed by a professional or a chartered accountant. There is a responsibility of ascertaining these things because these are pointers or red flags which you can always put it when you are doing the audit. You can always see a situation which is not normal, right? And in those situations, if you are complicit in not preparing your audit documents or in not recording these things and to get the information from the management to build your audit record, you will always have a problem of explaining this to an officer. I keep telling this because you are a professional. But unfortunately, in our country, when these type of predicate offences are being investigated by the Enforcement Directorate, or if the any of the criminal offences is investigated by the police wing or the economic affairs wing of the department, they are not professionals. They don't know what is your scope of audit. They don't know to what extent you can go and they don't know to what extent you can't go. They will feel that you are complicit in everything. Unfortunately, because the law is such under PMLA that somebody can also be accused of even assisting another person in committing a fraud. If that be the case, the whole chain of people who are involved in an organization can be hauled up. So my only suggestion to all our professional friends is, first thing to say no, because unfortunately I was saying this, that a professional is appointed by the management to do the audit. There is always a quid pro quo. If it comes to a situation where you'll have to put your foot down, every professional invariably has to put their foot down and say no. And especially for the younger professionals, I would say that they'll have to be cautious. Fortunately for the older generation, these type of draconian laws were not there when they did the audit. They have probably passed 20 years of their profession. But for the younger generation, even to give a certificate, they have to really do a lot of work. It's an unfortunate situation because of all the developments which are happening in the business side. That's all I could say on this. Thank you.
Yeah. So that reminds me of Amitabh Bachchan's Pink. No means no. It's a full word in itself. And I think that's the audience, that's the message for the audience this morning for you. Sharat Kumar sir, your follow-on thoughts around what Chidaranand said.
Three facets I want to bring to your notice. I observed in the cases I investigated, 75 to 80% of the auditors are negligent. Only 25 to 30% are complicit and involved in the fraud. 75% negligence. Negligence stemmed from three factors, sir. Factor one, presumption, sending two junior teams and not maintaining proper documentation. CBA will come and question you, ED will come and question you. After 10 long years, you don't have any data to justify this thing. An inspector and the DSP examining you will tell me, what is this? Sorry, sir, I don't remember. No, you are a chore. No, sir, I don't have a paper today. You are a chore. Sorry, sir, I don't have proper computer crashed. My hard disk changed. You are a chore. If you are good, you would have produced everything to me. He will conclude that in the absence of contrary evidence to be produced by you, documentation by you, you are chore. Because investigation agency, I don't mind including myself, we are like snakes. Don't allow the snake to enter your house. What is the job of the snake? To bite you. You can't come back to your institute and cry that snake is biting me, snake is biting me. Don't allow. So how to safeguard from the snake, I'll tell you in the end, if provided chairman permits me. Sir,
So if you thought that Sharad Kumar...
any question, sir. To safeguard, I'll tell. Please,
Yeah,
sir.
so if you thought Mr. Sharad Kumar in this air-conditioned cabin is any easier, you can imagine what he must be 20 years back or 25 years back.
Very difficult.
So he's on a lighter side of the table what you are seeing him. But so Sharad Kumar, is there really a degree for fraud, or is it that major or minor, everything is painted to the same set of brush?
Sir, I'll give you an example. Is there a degree? I am happily married. I am trying to kiss a lady whom I met in the party. My wife will not tolerate that. She can't accept that. I only went to that extent, don't go further. There is no degree in fraud, sir. One thing will lead to another. So, sorry for the crude example, with due respect to the ladies here. There is no degree in fraud, sir. Always in my experience, Nirav Modi, I have done the case for CVC and IB. First LC started is only 20 lakhs, but it is a fraudulent LC. And it graduated to 10 crores, 20 crores like that. So according to me, there is no degree in fraud, provided you confirm it is a fraud. It is not an error. There is a thin demarcation between, friends, error and fraud. So you must make a clear demarcation between these two. But once you establish by various factors it is a fraud, there is no degree, sir, according to me.
That Lakshman Rekha is a difficult line to draw, and I think therefore the question is that whether this small boil will eventually lead to amputation or not, and whether do you understand that boil or do you treat it as just a scar is the lesson or
Sir,
the message which we are hearing from Mr. Sharad Kumar. Mohan sir, in this context of the subject, what is the role of investors, the management, the independent directors to avoid business fraud or to crush the need to perpetrate fraud?
Yeah, okay. Thankfully, we're moving away from the auditors now, and we're talking about the role of the management, because it always takes two sides, they say, for any sort of fraud to happen. Sir, I think as far as the investors are concerned, they should stop asking for results, asking for performance, and they should probably change their focus from valuation to profits. Valuations will come only unless you got some values. So you should have certain basic values, only then you'll get the valuation. So I think from the investors, the demands from the management to growth at any cost, profits at any cost, that obviously puts pressure on the teams to do something which is not permitted by the law. So they should really take things as they are. And we know many situations wherein because of the pressure of showing a certain stated rate of growth, shall I say, many of the management have started doing things which are not palatable, and they've also tried to sort of tell the auditors that there are certain ways in which we can probably work around these things here. So I think from the investors' point of view, that is definitely something which I would probably expect from them, not to put undue pressure on the management to start showing only results. As far as the management is concerned, I feel, Sandeep sir, that their responsibility is probably primary in this. There is something called as tone at the top, wherein you actually have to put in your ethical policies. You've got corporate governance policies. Every law in India has got a corporate governance policy. And the management is supposed to adopt those policies, bless those policies, implement those policies. What will happen is the way you show the tone at the top is how the others below the line will also sort of follow. So if you show a very good ethical conduct on top, it is obvious that people down the line will also follow it. This includes all the junior level management. It sort of trickles down across the entire value chain, so to speak here. Another thing which I should probably tell you now is that the Code of Ethics of the Institute has recently been amended to bring in something called as the NOCLAR provisions, non-compliance of laws and regulations. And this is applicable to any public accountant, which also includes accountants who are probably in service. It is imperative that audit committees adopt this NOCLAR policy and also sort of make it a part of their code of ethics, and the risk management committee has also their corporate governance policies, so that there is a certain disincentive not to follow, or not to break certain laws. So I think management has an extremely vital role to play. It is the message they send across, which is what is going to be implemented across all the people who are part of the ecosystem of that particular organization. Independent directors, actually, if you look at the code of conduct given for the independent directors in Schedule 4 of the Companies Act, nobody will want to become an independent director. They have written, it's almost 2 pages long, and it is more than what even for the CFOs got, I think. Schedule 4 gives a lot of things. Interestingly, sir, one of the things, Sandeep sir, in that is that independent directors are also supposed to report any actual or suspected fraud. Even suspected fraud. The Schedule 4 has got as a part of their duties, they are supposed to also report any actual or suspected fraud or even violation of the code of ethics of the company. So it is absolutely necessary for them to, one, of course, look at the code of ethics and again sort of call out any deviations there. So I would probably answer this by saying that the whole ecosystem is probably responsible for this, and everybody should be a part of this particular, corporate governance initiative.
I think the answer seems to be that everybody should have a mirror in front of their eyes. I
Sir,
think
it is a collective responsibility.
it's a collective responsibility is what we are saying, and it is not ye mera ghar or ye tera ghar. So that takes me, Sharad sir, to you one question. What is the perception and the mindset of the investors, the media, the regulators, and which includes the Reserve Bank, the Direct Tax? We had the chairperson, CCI, who was there this morning. We have the GST, the Economic Offence Wing, the SEBI, the MCA, the Serious Fraud Office, the NAFRA, and other stakeholders when business fraud emerges. And is it particularly, their mind is that we employed you to be more of a bloodhound versus watchdog, and we did hear some words around that. Sir, your thoughts?
Sir, a very pertinent question. As I initially stated in my opening remarks, the perception in the mind of all authority across the board is auditor is responsible for identifying, reporting and stopping the fraud. I am mentioning 3 things, sir. Identifying, reporting and stopping it. Stopping nobody can do. Fraud is perpetrated unless your connivance is there, as Sri Arsh rightly mentioned. I am not going into third part. Identification certainly is your job. You are mandated by various accounting standards, the protocols mentioned in the Companies Act, and of course, compliance of the laws and all that. Wherever you find the difference between the suspected fraud to be reported by independent director and the auditor is very, very critical to understand, sir. A director suffices to say that I suspect wrongdoing in this, and he is safeguarded by Companies Act, by the mandate given by LODR, SEBI, falana, falana. For example, in your enthusiasm after hearing to our session, you decided to declare fraud wherever necessary or not necessary. I am giving lighter vein. You declare fraud unwittingly in a suspected case where it proved to be not a fraud later. You will be squarely held responsible for the consequences. Am I clear, sir? So, what do? You have to safeguard your interest by reporting this as a emphasis of the matter, and in the notes of accounts to tell that I didn't have enough evidence to suspect fraud, but I suspect something is amiss here. So I am bringing it to the notice of the things. Your job is over. So don't declare fraud. Mindset of the entire agency is against us, sir. It is set. What do you, each agency calls you, you are supposed to identify fraud. You have to show them relevant provisions of the law on the mandates under which you work, that exactly it is not the mandate, sir. I have done my job by following these counters. But unfortunately, expectations and mindset are very high. And unfortunately, we also gave credence to that a bit. We also have to be found fault with. Thank you, sir.
Chidaranand sir, your follow-on question, and I have in this one question from the audience that time is too short. with the result that I really am not able to do my job. And that's with reference to the listed entity. And with the follow-on answer to the question, Chidanand sir, your thoughts, that time is too short, whether is it really a batting or a bowling or a net which you can do really?
This may be your difficulty, but that is not a defense. That's all I can say. As a professional, you know for sure when you take up an assignment that you have that time and you have that scope of work which you are accepted to do. And I'm sure that that can never work as a defense when something as grave as the fraud has been alleged.
So, just as on a side note, when we were speaking to the SEBI chairman a couple of years back, and this question on timeline of closing the quarterly versus the annual came in, and the thought process of the chairperson and chairman is absolutely that if you are not prepared, if you don't have the bandwidth, if you don't have the infrastructure, please do not come and be a listed entity. Your back office problem is not the problem of the government, is what is the thought processes of the chairman, and I'm sure that must be the thoughts across.
Yes, sir. Somebody can give a mic to him.
Yeah, this is a question which I put forward to the profession, and Mohan is there. He can respond to it. This is not a question, I'm just supplementing. What we say in our audit report is that the management is responsible for the financial statements. The question which I put to you, sir, a suggestion which I put to you, sir, let us make it a reality. If you want the accounts of the company, a listed company, by May 15th, May 31st, let the board pass it and publish it without the audit report. Let them do a stress test on the accounts and then give it for audit. Within 2 months, you will find that the quality of reporting will improve, the frauds will come down. Automatic management frauds will come down. This system of the auditor going parallelly with the management, while a lot of decisions are taken in the last 2 days of the audit, everything is postponed to the end. Whatever is given to the audit staff at the beginning is just like that Pareto principle. 80% of the junk takes 20%. 80% of the time is taken 20%. So why don't we come with this legislation and make it a reality?
Thank you. I think the question maybe now or during the course of the rest of the questions can be addressed, that whether this parallel betting, is it really... would you like to take that question, sir?
Yeah, 2 minutes, sir. Anil sir has given a substantive change which needs to be done by the institute and also by the legislators, because what is being said is that with the short time which has been provided under the statute itself, there is no way that the fraud can also be detected by the auditors. And there is a certain thought process. There are certain certified fraud examiners outside the country who are professionals who would do the job. In India, we don't have certified fraud assessment professionals. What Anil sir is saying is absolutely true, because if you are saying that you got to certify the audit statement, you surely need a lot of time to be a bloodhound rather than being an auditor which will say that the true and fair view, depending on what the management would disclose to you, or even the management would certify to you saying that yes, I have purchased the asset, yes, I have paid the money to a foreign company because they have rendered the service to me. How would you be able to even verify that? That is all my take on it. Thank you, sir.
Chidanand sir, yes.
To supplement what he said, you are absolutely right. More legislation is a different matter. It may be within our hand or not in our hand. We can suggest. Each of us, whenever necessary, I found a little way to tweak this, in my experience at least. What do I do? Yeah, we'll do a fast audit, but these are the comments I am going to include in the notes. Okay, you accept your timeline, you accept my notes also. Many a time I found, no, we'll give you a little time to remove the notes. So I'll make a bargain. It is like a marriage, sir. Again, with due respect to the ladies here, my principle is don't accept assignment if you don't have time. You don't marry if you don't have time for your wife. You can't marry and tell her that you don't have time for her. So the point I am trying to tell you, there is no perfect solution. No, any further question I'll answer in the end. There is no perfect solution to this. You have to find a way out by negotiating with the management, and not every firm can afford to lose the client by distancing him also. Let us accept that. It is a fact of life. You can't lose 10 clients. You can lose 1 or 2 and sustain. A junior can't lose 1 or 2 also. So this is happening in the market, sir. Let us accept. Please.
Thank you.
I'm being frank.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I think your the parallels which you are drawing from a married life and fine balance between the work versus your requirement and the client's obligation, and you're willing to accept getting bulldozed and then crying is our own making. Chidanand sir, most of the audience here would have thought that our topic is accountability of auditors. And I think it's a generic word. So what kind of auditors? The statutory, the internal, the cost auditors, or both will be dragged into any controversy when the fraud emerges? Or is it necessary? And of course, that whether do you really have to be a chartered accountant for, to be held responsible?
As far as fraud is concerned, fraud vitiates everything. It depends on the nature of fraud committed. If it is a tax fraud committed, as I've said, that probably they look into who is the professional who is assisting the organization in filing their tax compliance or a tax return. There is no hard and fast rule that only internal auditors are responsible or a statutory auditor is responsible. Let us look at this way that they...
Or CFO also. Or CFOs also. Or CFOs also.
Or CFOs also. It depends on the type of fraud which is being detected. The fraud can emanate from anywhere. It can emanate from the top management. It can also emanate from one of the employees of the organization. So it depends on how, as I've been telling, that whether the auditor or whoever it is who is in the line of verification of the financial record, who would not do their job which is expected them of to do, or who is complicit in doing it, or who is connived in doing it, all of them would be held responsible prima facie. If it is shown that an internal auditor has not done the job and the internal auditor could have verified it, and the statutory auditor relies on the internal auditor's report and finalizes the balance sheet and surely takes all the documentary evidence to such effect, obviously the buck stops with the internal auditor. It depends on the nature of the fraud and the complicity of a person. It cannot be generalized that only A is responsible and not B. It depends on the allegations which crop up in a given situation. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
With the permission of chair, very pertinent question. It is purely situational, like Sri Wurst said. Okay, sometimes statutory auditors are totally unaware, they are left alone, but internal auditors are fully aware they were indicted and being charge sheeted. I don't quote the name of the case. In one of the market related investigation we are doing right now, neither statutory auditor nor internal auditors are involved, but the IS auditors are deeply involved. We are going to prosecute them in CBI and ED both. I am not disclosing because it is still under investigation.
And I heard that even the tax auditors of a non-corporate entity
Of
was
course.
also equally charged because they were also treated
Yes,
as
sir.
auditors. Mohan sir, what is the defense available to auditors when they are charged with professional misconduct? In this social media, is media trial there even before negligence is proved? And one additional question, is silence treated as an admission of guilt? Because We'll have Advocate Sir saying that this is your line of
He's waiting,
defense. So let's hear your thoughts, Mohan Sir, and then of course, please.
Just a small brief on Article 23 of the Constitution, which says that you can't be a witness to your own case. That article will only apply when you are an accused in an offense, not when the investigation or inquiry is happening. Please keep that in mind. There is a huge difference when somebody is asked to give a statement when he is accused, and somebody is asked to give an explanation during the course of an investigation or an inquiry. Under the PMLA or various other economic laws, when the investigation is conducted or the inquiry is conducted, you are not standing in the position of an accused. So you don't have any defense whatsoever to say, I can't be a witness to my own case, so I am not going to give an explanation to you, I am not going to give any information to you, I am not going to open my mouth on whatever questions you ask. Please bear that in mind. That is not a valid defense. You are not an accused at any point in time. So that has to be clearly demarcated when the officers ask the relevant questions and ask for relevant information which has to be provided. So silence is not a defense in an investigation or inquiry proceeding. Article 23 is only when you are an accused and then the statement is recorded from that accused person, only then the defense is available. Thank you.
That's a nice distinction.
I'll answer this in the end while answering how to safeguard the professional.
Yes, I have that one question
Because
as well.
these both are linked, sir.
Yes, Mohan Sir.
Yes, sir. Okay, so I think I'll answer this serially, this question. The first is I'll answer Anil's question also about this postponing of this by 2 months, and it's an ideal situation to have, Anil. Definitely, there's no doubt about it. It's an ideal situation to have. It calls for a lot of legislative change also, as Chid also was saying. And I really think that as we've been discussing here, see, what do we say? I'm talking about the statutory audit. In the statutory audit report, we are saying reasonable assurance. We are saying reasonable assurance that there's no material misstatement. I will prove reasonable assurance through my documentation. As Sharat Kumar sir also has said, documentation is what is going to save you. And I think this is a very larger theme which we have to accept, that whether it is a fraud, whether it is negligence, whether it is dereliction of duty by the auditor, the only thing which can save us is an adequate and proper documentation. I think we'll have to accept that as a fact. I'm not saying that documentation is inadequate right now, but we should go for what is called as protective documentation, wherein we are saying that the conclusions which we are reaching and the decisions which we have taken are to a certain extent because of these particular reasons. And I'm sure that, Chit will also agree with me, in a court of law also it will probably be, held to be valid, and they can probably, defend ourselves using that. Unfortunately, we have come to a situation today wherein we have to talk about defending our audit. This was never there in the past. When what we are talking today is about basically we're trying to defend the audit we have done. And I think we have grown up in a situation wherein the only thing which can probably assist us in defending against this audit is only our documentation. That is as far as the first part of your question is concerned, sir. Social media, yes, there will be a lot of social media, things which will happen once any such things which come to, light. And your last question on whether silence is equal to approval. You saw about a couple of days back, we heard about the Silicon Valley Bank. And nobody even asked the auditors. They only saying we are defending our audit. Nobody even asked them the question. This was never raised at all. Nobody said, did you do a proper audit? They have already gone ahead and given a statement saying that we are defending our audit. We are not going to withdraw our opinion. But I will give you the example of another bank. This is Credit Suisse, which happened a couple of days back. And this, I think, Sandeep sir, is something we have to really ponder about. The bank has said that they are withdrawing their previous year's ICFR report. They said that we noticed weaknesses in internal control systems. 2021 December, it was said to be fine. The auditor approved it. 2022 December, they are saying that there have been some weaknesses. And because the management has said that, even the auditor has withdrawn his opinion. And he has said now that there are material weaknesses in internal control there. So I think the fact remains that he has done what the management has probably sort of done, and there's followed through. Maybe he has not probably done his own job in controls at that point of time last year. That's what I feel.
Yeah. Thank you. PMLA and the auditors has been a matter of big professional conversation all across. Chidanand sir, what would be your advice be? And I know we can consume hours and hours on this topic on the PMLA and the auditors and its impact on the auditors. I said we can, probably take a full day session, but for the benefit of the audience, maybe top 2-3 lines over. I know it's a hard take for you, but please.
As I've been practicing in this side of law, I can only say with a lot of heavy heart that it's one of the most draconian laws that we have from 2005 onwards. For God's sake, every professional also has to be very careful about this law for one reason. As I've been telling, I'm not going to expound or say what is this. I've already said, I've given a brief idea about the money laundering law, that any company or a director or any organization which commits a crime or a scheduled offense, which is called a predicate offense under the Prevention of Money Laundering Act, and an FIR is filed or a charge sheet is filed for the violation which is committed, that may be a fraud or any violation for that matter. And if there is, the problem is this, a professional may not gain anything out of the violation or a fraud, but if the professional is complicit or he assists somebody in they layering this transaction, what we call it layering these transactions, he or she will also be accused of committing an offense of money laundering. Keep that in mind. And the unfortunate situation is that once there is an allegation or an accusation, the proceedings will go on for a good decade or more. Keep this in mind, that you don't need to waste your decade or something fighting these cases, because our courts are absolutely slow in proceeding against these type of violations or allegations. They're hard pressed for time. And under the PMLA law, there are two branches. One, the acquisition or the attachment of a property which is an adjudication mode, and the other is the prosecution, which will be done before the special court for a violation, where if there is a violation, the jail term will be up to 7 years under Section 4 of the Money Laundering Act. Both go parallelly. And the only solace given by the Supreme Court now is that if there is the predicate offense, or what we call it a scheduled offense or a criminal offense, if that allegation is not proved, or if somebody is acquitted of the offense, then all the other persons who are proceeded against can also take umbrage under the decision of the trial court, or even any of the higher court where a criminal charge is not established or somebody is acquitted. Then the whole proceedings will fall down like a pack of cards. This is what the Supreme Court said in Vijay Madanlal Chaudhary's case, where they said that if there is no predicate offense, there is no proceeds of crime which is generated at all, because he has been acquitted of the predicated offense. In that situation, you can't independently proceed against them under the Prevention of Money Laundering Act, because the government took a view, and an amendment is also made by saying that PMLA violations and PMLA prosecution proceedings are independent of the predicate offense. Supreme Court said no. If there is no violation at all because somebody is acquitted, if there is no violation of a law, and if there is no criminality, where is the question of proceeds emanating out of a crime? So court has to that extent said that, so if there is a criminal trial ends in an acquittal, good, because these proceedings also will automatically abate. Otherwise, it is very, very difficult. And one more unfortunate situation under Section 24 under PMLA is this. The burden of proving that you have not committed the crime is on you. It is what is known as the reverse burden under Section 24 of the Prevention of Money Laundering Act. Keep this also in mind, that in case of a criminal offense, the prosecution will prove beyond reasonable doubt that the offence has been committed. But under PMLA, the ED has got only one job to do. They'll file the complaint before the magistrate saying that yes, there is a scheduled offence, there is a money which is involved in the commissioning of an offence. These are the people who are also complicit in helping that person in committing that violation. And you will have to prove before the court that this violation or this money is not out of proceeds of crime. It's a Herculean task. You will have to lead the evidence and you will have to prove it. So keep that in mind. This is the most draconian law we have now, because the Supreme Court has also said that this law and this violations committed which are listed in the scheduled offence, it will surely hurt our economy to a large extent, and we'll have to be very, very strict while invoking this law or administering the law. So keep that also in mind and make your records and documentation strong to that effect. That's all I could say.
So I know, Sharad sir, that you are itching to give an answer. The AK-47 is a powerful tool, and if any of the audience here thought that we are done with our education and learning, probably we'll have to go back home and start preparing again. Sharad sir?
I can't agree with him more than this. He amply mentioned, I dare say, that anybody in this hall, including me, that includes me, sir, PMLA can be invoked to book anybody, practically, for commissions and omissions both. Normally, in normal crime, it is a commission. It is here omission. I will tell you two examples which I am investigating again. I hope I am not boring you by telling. My job is to tell you what I am investigating. That is why I am called for. Chinese loan app cases, about 6 to 8,000 crores of money is transferred out of the country. ED and IB, we are doing joint investigation. I recommended on file, nobody can say no to that in such a way, 7-8 firms who have done normal audit, they are not to be touched because they are not at fault. 2 firms, surprisingly, one is a concurrent audit of a bank branch where 1,000 crores is transferred. The manager has manipulated the system to ensure that STRs, what is STR, sir? Suspicious transaction reports to FIU are not sent, and concurrent auditor unfortunately messaged the junior of the concurrent auditor, messaged the senior, sir, STRs are being bypassed and not sent. This man replies to his junior CA, I will check up with the manager. Manager issued the senior CA and he submitted the report, and now he is booked under section 24 of PMLA. He can't escape. He will be convicted. One more thing, sir. The other case is, there is a CA from Delhi who has given 1,500 certificates in a period of 3 months. 1,590 days, 1,500 certificates for remitting money, permitting, which are submitted to Reserve Bank, where we found draconian things. He is also booked. So the moot point is 8 firms I could safeguard. These 2 firms, complicity is there, they cannot escape. Sorry, sir.
No, I'm mindful of our next speaker. We have Manish Sachdeva, and while we started late, but we don't want to derail the next session on time.
It is useful to them to safeguard themselves.
Yeah. So I've obviously cut down some of the questions, but I'm going to come to the last 3 closing questions, and we have 5 minutes, and then subject to maybe a minute or 2. And I will start with Sharad Kumar, with you.
Yeah.
How equipped we are as auditors in relying and using the technology, and whether the old time-tested audit methodologies or evidence is going to be good enough in the present virtual environment, like cloud, the data warehouse, the remote servers. So maybe...
Sir, all the methodologies which are stipulated are rightly in place. Like bank audit is going to happen next month. Many of my colleagues are not taking care to read the bank audit manual. I'm sorry, don't misunderstand me, sir. Just the documentation, the mandate is before you. Take little interest and read it. Don't go by presumption. If you follow what is available, that is enough to safeguard, sir. You need not do extraordinary things. Okay, that is my answer, simple answer, sir. And a little professional skepticism has come into place. Again, I gave I always give my example. I am happily married for 41 years. Okay, I have excellent relation with my wife, but for her support I am not here today. I would not have resigned from civil service. But at the age of 41, in the midnight, I am seeing messages and suddenly switching off phone when she is questioning me sleepily on a continuous basis. She has to doubt me. I am good for 41 years doesn't mean that I am good after 41 years. You understand my point, sir?
The gold does not remain gold forever, so you have to...
Go with a bit of professional skepticism. Okay.
Mohan sir, we touched upon questions that whether is there only night or is there day. So my question to you, Mohan sir, is that will the pressure on the auditing professionals force the younger generation to look at other opportunities? Is there really a mismatch between the risk and...
Sir, I'll answer this question. What is a good auditor without a little fraud here and there? There is one George Sculler, he is a famous naturalist of American origin. He settled in Kanha National Park and studied two forests in Kanha. In one forest, deer and tiger are coexisting. Naturally, tiger hunts the deer and eats them. Only 1,000 deer are there. There is other forest where there are no tigers, 3,000 deer are there. His study of 25 years revealed that the DNA of the tiger-infested forest deer is so strong, they maintain these 1,000 numbers forever, whereas the DNA of the non-tiger infested forest deer is weak, they'll perish in about 100 generations. So, tiger is not a threat, sir. He'll help you to make your DNA stronger. Threat will not make you run away. Threat should make your DNA stronger to work better. That is my suggestion to you, sir.
Chidanand sir, your thoughts that are there any structural changes required in the system surrounding the auditors and their engagement, and in particularly the fact that internationally also the Bankers Association is saying that from an inquiring mind to a suspicious mind. I mean, like, are we always going to distrust everybody I meet? So do you think that there is time? And we did have one of the speakers who spoke about structural change around post-result audit. So your thoughts?
I would only say that no changes can be made keeping in mind that fraud can be perpetrated. That's virtually not possible. As I've got the data from the Reserve Bank, the quantum of fraud in 2019-20 has increased 4 or 5 times. So there cannot be any structural changes made keeping in mind that the fraud should be avoided or evaded. My only suggestion to all the professionals is eternal vigilance, and one most important thing, the professional integrity and eternal vigilance will take us a long way in whoever perpetrates the fraud. As long as we are vigilant, we are not complicit in that, and there might be a little difficulty or there may be a small inability in not finding out the fraud will not really put me into such a greater trouble. All that professionals have to probably cultivate is that small amount of integrity and eternal vigilance to be suspicious. I'm not saying that you'll have to be a bloodhound or anything, but the business environment has changed to such an extent that you'll have to be suspicious about quite a lot of things. And I have been reading a report which says that why frauds are being perpetrated. You have this banking system now which is very robust and got the financial documents, and the nature of document they come up with is very complex. And an auditor cannot even understand the way the bankers devise these type of financial instruments. And these are the challenges or the new challenges which the profession would invariably face, because they don't even know how these documents are devised by the bank. Because the biggest fraud which is perpetrated, or the system generation or integration of a fraud, happens at the banking level. As we have seen, that when there is a complicity of a banker or the banker's greed to get more money into the system, and they can devise any document. Unfortunately, the job of a professional has become that much more difficult now to comply with these type of situation. Only thing I would say is that keeping fraud, no structural changes can be done, obviously, but we will have to scale up on our professional integrity, and probably eternal vigilance will probably help us and to build the documentation on our side. As Anil sir said that yes, if you change our way of operation, probably by giving us extraordinary time or more time to do more of a fraud detection audit, including the statutory audit, probably we will be in a better position not to be accused of all those minor things of all these violations.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you. I'm just mindful, sorry to cut you out. Last 30 seconds, Mohan sir, and then we end with you.
Sir, I fully agree. We need not have separate thing to ensure that what is existing coupled with adaptation, DNA strength, I am telling you. What is DNA strengthening, sir? DNA, if you see historical evolution, we also have to evolve according to situation. And the existing laws and mandates are totally sufficient to enable us to do a better job than this thing. Whenever chairman says, I'll give conclusive remarks from the perspective of safeguard. Can I go ahead?
Sir, we are, but last
Few
30,
minutes, yeah.
last 30
Sir,
seconds, sir, we
permit
have...
me, 3-4 things I want to share with,
Please,
permit me to
please,
stand and share with sir. Sir, this is my 42nd year of profession as a chartered accountant. Forget my civil service background. I am proud to be CA. There is no greater profession than our profession. Still, daughter is a CA. So many. My point is how to enhance our skills in the changing circumstances, as he said. 3 things, sir. Where I am telling you from negative perspective, but I am a very fun-loving, jovial guy. Okay. What I found fault with the auditors when I am prosecuting them is, the simplest way the auditor is caught in 95% of the cases is the audit methodology you follow, the protocols you follow. How do you follow? As you do the audit, you will get an email by first cut of financials. Am I right, sir? You send a junior team for watching. Am I right or wrong? Then you will send a next junior team. They'll sit with the CFO and send the next cut. Then the senior partner will involve. He'll send certain clarifications by the 3rd cut. 4th cut will come. 5th cut will be finally on the record. Most unfortunately, all the 5 cuts of balance sheets are recorded in your server by emails. By emails, why? A email doesn't cost a rupee. A trailing mail, each day I have seen you send emails only on 2 occasions, when it is necessary, when it is not necessary. Am I right, sir? Am I right or wrong? If email is 5 rupees and CC is 1 rupee, you will be guarded in sending emails. So when we are seizing this computer hard disk after 10 years, I am asking you, Babu, this is your first cut. In that the frauds or misnomers are indicated. Now we are investigating. In the 5th cut, you dropped it. How did you drop? What is your rationale? There is no justification. This is the biggest thing. I am successfully prosecuting many CAs. Please watch your cuts and emails. You are safe. Have a girlfriend. Don't send WhatsApp. You leave a permanent record. Okay. So the point I am trying to tell, the second one, technology. It is an enabler. It is certainly an enabler. We are thinking that in banks, in the companies, Tally will take care. CBS will take care in the bank. You think that everybody is doing your job and everybody is thinking IT is doing everybody's job. What is happening? Nobody is doing any job. Neither CBS nor Tally nor SAP is dependable to the extent that it is manipulated to. You are not verifying, in my experience, the robustness of the system and the platform on which the financials are maintained. You are not verifying the robustness at all. Sir, do you agree with me? I am observing.
Sir, yeah. my recommendation, sir, to the organizers and to all of us is that if it is okay, this topic of Ye Dil Mange More, maybe we could ask them to hold a webinar on a part 2 of our session, so
I'll
that
share.
I don't want to do disjustice to our next
I'll
speaker.
share with them.
Right?
I'll
So
share with
I
them
think
separately.
we'll speak to the VP ma'am, and then probably I will have the privilege. Sir,
Thank you.
last 30 seconds for you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Sorry, I exceeded my brief.
No,
No, it's okay. So, okay, 30 seconds only I've got. So I'll not go beyond 30 seconds. I'll only give 2 sentences. Documentation, detailed documentation, report
everything.
fearlessly. Report fearlessly. There are only 2 sentences I'll give the auditor, because I'm assuming that in any audit, in every audit, there is a line which we know we should not cross. We all know it. It's there in every audit. My only conclusion remarks will be, please don't allow the company to cross that line. If they do, you report it, and you don't cross that line. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Correct, sir.
I'm sorry, friends. The questions we will not be able to handle, and as I promised, we will request your organizer to probably have a follow-on webinar for the benefit of this audience, maybe for next 30-45 minutes, and we'll take their time on a webinar. It will be my pleasure. Thank you so much, all the 3 panelists, and truly, ye dil mange more. I know 100 years of experience is not something which we can compress in 40 minutes, but thank you so much. It was my pleasure and privilege to have all of you.
Thank
A
you, sir.
big round of applause for our panelists, please.
A huge round of applause. Ye dil is truly manged much, much, much more of it, sir. Difficulty is surely not a defense. And as we are married to our beloved spouses and the profession, don't accept assignment if you don't have time is the key. And defense through documentation is surely taken by all of us. Thank you all very much for this elaborated real-time issue-based discussion. And CA Sandeep Shah for wonderfully moderating the session, sir.
Our heartfelt gratitude to MSSV and Co. for presenting this most enlightening discussion for all of us. I request all the speakers to kindly stay back on the stage.
Permission of chairman, one small word. Any of you, anytime you land in legal problems, feel free to contact me. I'm there. I'm there, sir.
I request the speakers to kindly stay back and allow us to present you a memento. I request CA Prakash Tigdi, Belgaum branch chairman, to present a memento to our wonderful moderator, CA Sandeep Shah.
A huge round of applause to our wonderful moderator, all the way from Mumbai. I request CA Radhesha Mundra, Bagalkot District CA Association, to present the memento to Advocate Chidanand Aras. You all might be wondering why a tiger's picture is there as the front page of our souvenir. This picture is captured by our Chidanand Aras. This is Tiger Kumba, known as T34 at Ranatambur Tiger Reserve picture. A huge round of applause.
I request CA Yusuf to present a memento to CA Mohan R. Lavi. A huge round of applause for our panelists, CA Mohan Lavi.
Your short and sweet two-liners are always in our minds, sir. And I request CA Yaraswamy to present the memento to CA Sharat Kumar, all the way from Hyderabad, to enlighten us on this wonderful topic.